Okay, this is being recorded. Hello, everyone. Wow, I see so many names and so few faces. Where are the faces? All right, there we go. This is looking a lot better. I love it. I love it. Hey, Sharon Vaughn and Noreen, hi. I'm only going to say hi to the faces. Hey, Jill. Hi, Sid, Elizabeth, Rebecca.
Why, excuse me.
Hey, Beverly.
Hello.
Vince, hello. How are you? How you doing, Vince?
Hi,
Very nice to meet you. Wonderful. Oh, let's see. I'm on that second screen already. Who else have we got over here? We're going to start in just a minute. Oh, there's Remy and Dave. Jan Sadikian. Hey, Jan. I owe you a phone call. It's coming. It's coming. And Stephen's iPad. Okay. Hey, Stephen's iPad. Good to see you. Okay, I will call out a few people who don't have their faces on. That's okay, you don't have to have your face on, but it sure makes the room a lot warmer when we can see your face. So Jolie and Peter, hello, welcome. Debbie Allen, Mike Gondek. Okay, I'm name challenged, but I do work on it and I'm open to correction. Heather Hudson, Elizabeth and Jonathan Hannah. All right, I know some other Hannahs, in fact. Wonderful, wonderful. Heather Hudson. Okay. Oh, Ann Troy. Hey, Ann Troy, how are you? Good to see you again.
How are you doing? Good to see
Great,
Randie
thank
again after
you.
more than 20 years.
Yes, I know. Willis. Which Willis is this, I wonder? Is it the Willis I know, or is it the Willis I don't know? It is
Hi,
the
Rebecca.
Willis I know. Hey, Willis, good to see you. Oh, delightful, delightful. We've got Debbie Allen, the professional dancer here. You see her there. You have to be a certain age to know who Debbie Allen is, okay? Regina's here, wonderful. Layla, that's a beautiful spelling, and I hope I pronounced it correctly. Okay, well, enough people are in the space here. We're going to go ahead and get started, but welcome to everybody. I'm Sherilyn Stevens. I'm your host for the Racial Healing, Justice, and Unity Bahá'í-inspired series. And we're just delighted to have you all here, old friends and new friends. I saw some names I haven't seen before, so I'm awfully excited. If you can, while we're getting started and a few more people are coming in, if you're able to indicate on your name the city or state where you are, that would be awesome, because it's always so nice to see where people are from. So I'm in Middleton, Wisconsin. You can see that on my name there. So if you know how to do that, please do so. And if not, that's perfectly okay as well. So I'd like to just welcome you again and briefly tell you a little bit about the series. So this is an online educational program that meets typically twice a month, and with participants from varied backgrounds and traditions from across the country. And here we come and listen and join with presenters from the arts, academia, community organizations, and those with lived experiences to ascertain how we can forge a path to racial justice. And many of us here also share a belief that racism must be supplanted by just relationships between individuals, communities, and the institutions of society. So this is a learning space for all of us. Our objectives in this space are to have honest and truthful discourse about causes and conditions, and understanding in particular the deeply entrenched notions of anti-Blackness that do pervade our society. To examine what's being done, what's making a difference and why, to build cooperative and collaborative relationships with each other, and to elevate our knowledge, ignite our volition, so that we can then take action, appropriate action, regardless of where you're starting on this journey of exploration, learning, and action. There's always something we can dial it up just a little bit on the notch. So maybe it's having a conversation with someone, about racism or about what you've learned. And or maybe it's doing something at a community organization, or going out and actively working to make a friendship with someone of a different race from yourself. And of course, there are many, many other things we can all do as individuals. So thank you for joining us. And every presentation, we start out with a brief devotion. And I'm looking for, and I'm going to ask people to raise their participant hands, not this hand, but the participant hand, because I need 3 readers for our devotional. And we have a couple of short quotations that we share, some music. We have an Indigenous acknowledgement. And then I have the pleasure, and I'm so excited to introduce Randie Gottlieb to you, our presenter this evening, about educating educators. So I've got one hand up. So Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to take the first 2 slides, if you will. And I'd like one more, please, one more volunteer. Oh, who can we get? Well, Sharon Vaughn, I see you, so I'm going to ask you, would you read the remaining slides after Rebecca? Okay, thank you so much. All right, so with that, you know, we just kind of start out with a little drum beat just as a signal. Okay, we're gonna just settle down for a minute. Here's some nice quotations, some beautiful music, and then move into our formal program. So thank you, friends, for joining us. Jillian, when you're ready, please.
The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. The ocean of divine wisdom surgeth within this exalted world, while the books of the world cannot contain its inner significance. Baha'u'llah.
No light. Ooh,
It's Rebecca.
No light
No-
can
okay, go
compare.
ahead. Oh,
You're in
No.
sync with each other. How wonderful. Rebecca, that one's yours, and the rest are
Okay.
yours, Sharon. Thank you, ladies.
No light can compare with the light of justice, the establishment of order in the world, and the tranquility of the nations depend upon it. Baha'u'llah.
the well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. Baha'u'llah. So free must be your thoughts and actions of any trace of prejudice, racial, religious, economic, national, tribal, class, or cultural that even the stranger sees in you loving friends. The Universal House of Justice. That's me too.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry. If you meet those of different race and color from yourself, do not mistrust them and withdraw yourself into your shell of conventionality. Be rather glad and show them kindness. Think of them as different, colored roses growing in the beautiful garden of humanity and rejoice to be among them. Abdul Baha.
Thank you.
Make us as waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. As waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. And make all mankind as stars shining from the same heights of glory. As perfect fruits growing upon thy tree of life. Make us as waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. As waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. And make all mankind as stars shining from the same height of glory. As perfect fruits growing upon thy tree of life. And make all mankind as stars shining from the same heights of glory. As perfect fruits growing upon thy tree of love. Is a light that guideth in darkness. Love is a light that guideth in darkness. Love is a light that guideth in darkness. Love is a light that guideth in
Oh, that is such a refreshing and beautiful song, and we hope you all enjoyed it. The next thing that we'd like to invite you to do is to call in to the space any ancestors of blood or spirit. It's an opportunity for us to remember those who have passed on, to pray for them as they pray for us. And we call them in by remembering their names, saying their names, acknowledging them. And what you see here is a small collection of Baha'is throughout history who have stood for racial justice. And so I'm just going to say their names. You're invited to put family members, friends, anyone that you feel close to that you would like to acknowledge in the chat, to do that if you feel comfortable doing so. And then we will move on to the next part of our program. So starting from the upper left-hand corner, Sadie Oglesby, Robert Turner, Enoch Olinga, Dr. Madeline Carney, Elaine Locke, Dorothy Baker, Pauline and Joseph Hannon, William Sears, Robert Hayden, Rahia Canoe, Elsie Austin, Louis Gregory, Ellsworth Blackwell, Agnes Parsons, and Abdul Baha and Shoghi Effendi. And Abdul Baha and Shoghi Effendi are two of the central figures of our faith who have had a phenomenal impact in guiding the American Baha'i community on matters of racial justice. So with that, please continue to use the chat, and we'll go to our next slide now. And here we invite you to take a moment to acknowledge our Indigenous brothers and sisters. These are Native Americans, native to this continent. Often this is stated as a land acknowledgement, to acknowledge the land that was stolen from them. And our take on it is just a little bit different. We are acknowledging the people themselves and what they have done for this land and for us and for this continent. So what you see here are historical and contemporary Native Americans. Many people think they don't exist anymore because they've not seen them or they don't know about them. And so this is our small way of calling them to mind and of thanking them for their service to humanity in protecting the land for us. So we have a little music with that, what you can do if you don't know the indigenous territory on which you're residing. You can text your phone number, text your zip code to that phone number. It will tell you. And we'd ask you to put it in the chat and just tell us what city or state you're in and what the corresponding territory is. It's always very interesting to share that with one another. So we're going to have a few minutes of some music to do that, and then we will transition into our presentation from there.
Ya Baha'u'llah Pa, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. Ya Baha'u'llah Pa, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa. Ya Baha'u'llah Pa, Ya Baha'u'llah Pa.
All right, thank you, friends. You can keep putting things in the chat. Thank you very much. So I am so excited to welcome you to this presentation this evening by Dr. Randie Gottlieb. I can't remember how we met, but obviously we did meet. And we hit it off right away. And she has such an enduring commitment to racial unity. And when I learned about her organization and all of the work that she's done, I've been waiting for her to come to present to us for over a year. And she's so busy. She's doing something every day, on this. So I'd like to share with you briefly, her bio, her very modest but intriguing bio. My goodness. We really have to sit down and have some coffee and chat about this fascinating life she's had. So she's the executive director and the founder of UnityWorks, which is a nonprofit organization committed to reducing prejudice and promoting understanding of the oneness of humanity, the value of diversity, and the need for unity, with a focus on K-12 schools. She's been a teacher, a school principal, and college professor. She's authored 14 books. Wow. And holds degrees in education from Cal State. Hey, I'm a Cal State grad too. Boston University and Harvard. She has also been chased by street gangs in Morocco. She's worked as a child actor in Hollywood, played volleyball as a spiker on Team USA. She founded an elementary school in Puerto Rico, produced Spanish language community service radio and television programs, created Montessori math materials with the native Ngäbe-Buglé people in the jungles of Panama, and earned a bachelor's degree in wood design. With that, please help me welcome Dr. Randie Gottlieb.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherlyn. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you also, Jillian and Nason, for helping make everything work here today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm very excited. So I'm thinking I'm supposed to push share screen now. Is that correct?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the music was absolutely, the music and devotions were absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Very inspiring. So apparently it did not work. Let me try that one more time.
We could see it, Randie.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, we saw it.
You see it now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. For some reason, it doesn't have that green outline around it that says you are sharing. Okay, I will
There you
take
go.
it. And
Okay.
okay, so here we go. So I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement as well, a people acknowledgement. By acknowledging the people of the Yakima Nation here in Central Washington State, the original stewards of this land. And I would encourage you to be aware of Indigenous peoples and voices wherever you are as well. The topic today is teaching unity, educating school teachers about the oneness of humankind. And the goal of this effort is to help teachers, 80% in this country, 80% of whom are white, middle class, monolingual, and in Washington State, that number is 90% of teachers who are white, public school teachers. The goal is to help teachers move from the concept of humanity as separate races and from prejudices passed down for generations to the recognition that we are one human family, so that they in turn can share this understanding with their own students. And right now, as I'm sure everybody is aware, the entire country, the entire world is struggling with issues of race and diversity. And my thought is that learning about oneness, the oneness of humanity, should not be considered as an optional add-on to the curriculum. Rather, it's a critical part of the education of every student. So over the next 5 or 6 hours, hours, so I'd like to share a brief overview of some of the issues, some common responses to diversity, some equity issues in our schools, and time will be short, so we won't be able to, this won't be thorough, but just to give an idea of some of the things that our schools are dealing with. The UnityWorks school program, some training topics and training activities that we do with the teachers and school administrators, a few highlights from the participating schools. And then this is the part that makes me the most excited, is teachers changing views on race. And then some diversity resources that we've produced in response to teachers saying, well, we know all the theories, we've read all the research, but we want practical things that we can use tomorrow in our classroom with our students. And so we produced some of those as well. And then finally, time for questions that you might have, takeaways, and then I have a couple of closing thoughts. So Sherlyn, does that sound okay?
Yes, absolutely. The floor is yours. And friends, the chat is off. We'll have time for discussion, later on. And so save your questions.
Okay. So let me begin with the elephant in the room, or in this case, the elephant on the Zoom. And you may have noticed that I'm white. And I hear this as a diversity trainer. I hear this all the time. I hear, stop. Whites can't do this work. And you have no right to speak about prejudice. And my response to that is, racism is not a people of color issue any more than child abuse is a children's issue, or that domestic violence is a women's issue. It's a human issue that affects us all. And then they say, but you have all the power. And my response to that is, yes, I do have skin color privilege and power that goes with it. Would you rather that I use that to get more goodies for myself or to help bring about justice for us all? And then they say, but how can you possibly understand? And I say, you're right. I don't understand. I don't know what it's like to be Black or brown in this society. I don't personally know the pain of stolen land. But I do know what it's like to lose a job because of my skin color and a business because of my nationality, to be marginalized for my religious faith and stereotyped for my ethnicity, and discriminated and discounted, discriminated against because of my sex, and I've been threatened with death for dating a man from another racial group. So no, I don't know what that feels like every day, but the little bit that I have experienced, I know that it hurts and that it's wrong, and those are human feelings. So how can I stand by and do nothing when this affects my brothers and sisters of color all the time, every second, of every day. So my thought is, truth has no color. We all have a contribution to make and a role to play. So this is my story. This is the really short abbreviated version. These two got together and produced me. I had no choice as to whether I wanted to be black or white, tall or short, male or female. They didn't even ask. And I suspect many of you had a similar experience. All four of my grandparents came to this country as young teenagers, refugees escaping persecution of the Jews in Eastern Europe. And that's another whole long story, which I won't share today. But that has definitely impacted my view of this topic as well. I grew up in a white middle-class suburb of Los Angeles, and this is my actual house, where everyone is the same color as me. Everyone was the same color. We all spoke the same language. We celebrated the same holidays. We shared similar political and religious beliefs. We had pretty similar family structure, economic level, and skin color. In school, we learned about white authors and inventors, white artists and musicians, white presidents and kings, and we didn't even notice that women and people of color were essentially absent from the curriculum. The world has obviously changed since I grew up. We've seen some major demographic shifts across the country, and this has implications for our families, who we marry, our work, our relationships, and the people we serve. Now, a few statistics. In the year 2000, 1/3 of the people in this country are what is termed people of color. And I want to speak about that term in just a moment. In the year 2014, half of the students in our nation's school were students of color. Now, in Yakima, we're way past that halfway mark. We have schools here that are 80, 90% Hispanic, the tribal school, which is 100% tribal kids, and so forth. But this is nationwide. And then in the year 2045, I won't be here, but that's not that far away. What is termed minority will be the majority in this country. And we've already passed that halfway mark in, I think, 3 states now, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, perhaps. I'll have to look that up to be sure. The term people of color. I first heard this term in 1975. I was returning from a service project in the Dominican Republic, La República Dominicana. I had no idea what it meant. And I was told, you know, black, white, yellow, black, red, yellow, brown, everything but white. And I was told that this term, people of color, was actually, it was meant to counter the negative implications of non-white, which means you're a non, you're not, or minority, which means less than. And so I thought that was interesting because I had been in the Dominican Republic working in the interior of the country where everyone was black, and the kids especially had never seen anyone with light colored skin like mine. So when we walked in, I think there were probably 4 or 5 of us, my husband included, all of us with light skin. We walked into their village, and the kids all screamed and ran and hid behind the palm trees. And because they were seeing, does anybody know? They were seeing ghosts, but we had been forewarned. So we were ghosts with candy. And so little by little, the faces peeked out from behind the tree, and the kids came out and they were gathered around us in a circle. And I was looking at a sea of beautiful brown faces. And the first little boy who came up to me went like this on my arm. And just think about, can you see this? He was rubbing on my arm like this and then looking at his hand. I was the person of color. Okay, so I use the term, even though it's not accurate, but I just want to make it clear that we all have a color. So a quick look at some of the demographic changes here in Washington State. And these are some of the school districts that we've worked with over the past few years. This is White Center, interestingly named, White Center, Washington, which is just south of Seattle. The largest population of new students are Somali refugees. And one of the teachers there told me that her class was filled with these kids who she was trying to teach English, grammar, spelling, commas, punctuation, when all of a sudden outside in the parking lot, there was some construction going on and a truck came by and there was a loud noise. And all the kids screamed and dove under their desks and refused to come out for the rest of the hour. So think about it. These are kids that have just seen, they've come to a country where they don't know anyone, they don't speak the language, the culture is completely different. Their villages were burned to the ground. For some of them, their families were killed in front of their eyes. And here they are in the school system. Just think about that if you're a teacher. Not changing. Let me try that again. There it goes. This is in Kent, Washington, near the SeaTac airport and near Seattle as well. Kent has students from over 138 language backgrounds. And I was amazed, how do you deal with that, teachers and administrators? When you walk into the school in the main entrance, there's this electronic box on a pedestal, and it says, push here for English, push here for Spanish, push here for Swahili, or whatever the language is, 138 of them in alphabetical order. And then the kids can come to school and hear the announcement of the day, or the parents can hear it in their own language. I'm looking forward to the day when we have one universal language, but we're not there yet. So Tukwila, Washington, also on the Seattle side, one of the most diverse school districts in the country. Take a look at the teacher, take a look at the flags and the kids. It's here, folks, already. Here we are. Tukwila was #1 most diverse a couple of years ago. I think now it's moved down the list to about 45. So my thought is our diversity is the source of our greatest strength, and at the same time, some of our most divisive problems. We have obviously made a lot of progress over the years, and we still have a long way to go, with some of us marching for white supremacy and others for the right to breathe. I want to take a quick look now. Are we all okay so far? Am I going too fast, too slow, too boring? Okay, all right. In that case, I'll take that as a yes, I'm going to continue. So some common responses to diversity. And the first one, you may have heard of some of these terms before, is ethnocentrism. And that means my culture is the best. Our way is the right way. That's just the way we do things around here. And that ethnocentrism is what justified Manifest Destiny, Indian removal and genocide, slavery, and many other horrors. Ethnocentrism. The next is assimilation, which means I'm giving up my culture, I'm being absorbed into the dominant group, and you've all heard the idea of the melting pot. Sometimes this is voluntary, like my grandparents, when they came, they were white, and so they could do this, white European immigrants. They deliberately, on purpose, gave up their language, their music, their clothing, their holidays, most of their food, but my grandfather still liked to eat smelly sardines and Limburger cheese. But for the most part, gave up all of their culture and deliberately did not pass their language and traditions on to their children, and became part of the American melting pot in a voluntary way, under pressure, admittedly, for reasons of survival. Other people were forced to melt, and Sherilyn mentioned the indigenous peoples in the Indian boarding schools, where their hair was cut, they were beaten for speaking their language. They had to wear pioneer dresses and clothing. So assimilation can be voluntary or forced. And here we have the melting pot. Next is acculturation. And this means you are taking on elements of the new culture without giving up your own. So you have a foot in both worlds, which means you may be bicultural and bilingual. Another response to human diversity. Segregation, we've all heard that term. Again, segregation can be forced. I'm going to do all the talking because I know it's hard to, the chat is off and it's hard to raise people's hands. It'll just take more time. So forced segregation, Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese incarceration around World War II, Jim Crow, Native reservations, etc. And then if you can think of some types of voluntary segregation, and I would include some religious groups, Amish, Mennonites, and there's also white flight in gated communities. So where people deliberately take themselves out of the mainstream. Another response to diversity, and this is a term most people have not heard, I'm guessing, is bicultural ambivalence. And that's when you don't fit in either world. And maybe you were brought here as a child and you don't relate to your parents' culture, you don't speak the language, or you might be embarrassed by those other ways. And at the same time, the new larger dominant culture where you've moved into rejects you. And so you're not part of that either. So there's no center point. And that's that kind of empty space in the middle. And I would say many multiracial kids belong in that or feel like they're in that center circle as well. My own two kids were born and raised in Puerto Rico, and they grew up speaking Spanish, eating Puerto Rican food, wearing Puerto Rican clothing, celebrating Puerto Rican holidays, and so forth. And all their friends were Puerto Rican. When we moved to the States, my husband and I were moving back home. They were moving to our kids were moving to a foreign country. And they definitely did not fit in here. And they were in that empty, hollow place for many, many years. And it caused a lot of difficulty. And many teachers have those kids from that background in their classes. And I'll spare you all the stories of their experiences. That would be a whole nother PowerPoint. So cultural relativism, this is a kind of a research term. It was an attempt to overcome the idea of ethnocentrism, which says my culture is the best one and the only important one. Relativism says all cultures are good and all cultures are right for the people in those cultures. So Japanese culture is the best culture for Japanese people. Arab culture is great for Arabs, but there's a problem with that. Do we really agree with every aspect of every other culture? Do we really believe in that Chinese foot binding is good for Chinese women, or that women should be, have their face covered in some Arab countries and not be allowed to drive or work outside the home? And there are many things in my own culture which I strongly disagree with and I feel are unjust and very materialistic and unfair. So, and at the same time, my views are shaped by my culture. So how can I really make judgments about the validity of other cultures? That's the problem with relativism. This is the one that our country, the United States, says that it is built upon pluralism or multiculturalism, which is coexistence, where each group is welcome and each group maintains its unique cultural identity within a shared majority culture. I have other things on my mind here. It affirms the value of diversity, and we expect that each group has something to contribute to the larger society. So this is the idea, and you've heard this one, of the salad bowl rather than the melting pot. And that sounds reasonable, but this is the one that makes the most sense to me, and that's the idea of unity in diversity. And it's based on the recognition of the oneness of humanity. And just like a human body, each part has something important to contribute, and then all the parts function together as one organic whole. This is a paradigm shift from many centers to one. There is no us or them, it's all us. So this is true inclusion, as opposed to assimilating into the melting pot and getting rid of your culture. This strips away our diversity. This is where everyone is part of that one whole, but you notice now that the circles are not round. They're all stretched, and they've had to stretch and grow and maybe leave behind some things that don't fit for the good of all, and maybe adopt some new understandings and new ways of being so that all of us are included. And that stretching process is like a birth, and that can be painful. And I think that's where we are as humanity right now. The eye is an example of unity in diversity. The pupil admits light so we can see. The iris opens and closes the pupil to admit just the right amount of light. Each part has something important to contribute, and all the parts function together as one organic whole. What would happen if all the parts of the eye were the same? So Sherlyn, I'm going to ask if you would choose a reader for me. And this is from Black Elk, who is an Oglala Sioux medicine man, from the book Black Elk Speaks, where he Black Elk dictated his thoughts. And it's The Sacred Hoop.
Okay, wow, I get to choose. All right, Chris, Billy.
Thank you. The Sacred Hoop. I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy. Black Elk, Oglala Sioux medicine man, 1863 to 1950. Black Elk Speaks.
Thank you, Chris. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Chris, I'm going to ask you if you read that last paragraph one more time, and in the center.
Okay. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy.
Thank you. In my classes, I usually have people read the quotes twice, because the first time it kind of goes whoosh over your head, and the second time it sinks into your heart. So I appreciate that. So another thing we do in our in-person classes, and it doesn't work on Zoom because the audio is asynchronous, but comparing it to many different notes that blend together in the making of a perfect chord. And we actually sing that chord in the class, and people get the idea of unity in diversity. So let me stop for just a moment and ask if there are any questions so far, and if there are, Sherlyn will call on you.
Yeah, just raise that participant hand if you do.
And if not,
Okay.
Yep, go on.
I think so.
Okay, we want to take a look at some of the equity issues in our schools. And again, these are just some of the issues, some of the more common ones. So our schools, as I mentioned earlier, we face significant challenges related to race, gender, poverty, language, and many other dimensions of our diversity as well. So these are a few. One is biased curriculum. And I may have Sherlyn answer these questions. Sherlyn, I'm going to pick on you, or I can pick on Jillian or Nason if you would prefer. But I have a couple of questions about this. This is a quote taken out of my granddaughter's 4th grade textbook. And the quote says, "Cortez found beautiful silver and gold treasures in the Aztec cities." So here's my question. What's wrong with this statement?
Wow.
Do you want to ask someone? Oh, I see Lorraine has her hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Lorraine. You got it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was, I didn't know what we were doing. Okay. What's wrong with this statement is he didn't find it. He stole it, came in, grabbed it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't find, like, oh, I was just walking along the beach and, oh, tripped over this rock. Oh, wow, it's gold. I found it. Finders keepers, right? No, he stole, raped, pillaged, murdered, try a different word that would be more truthful.
Like tripping over a continent, right? We found America, tripped over the continent.
Right, exactly. So it's not, the word found sounds innocuous, right? It's not a swear word. It's not an ethnic slur. It's not, it doesn't sound bad, but it carries a lot of meaning. And that is everywhere throughout our curriculum. It's hiding the truth. So here's another question. And maybe I could pick on Lorraine again, because Lorraine, you got that right away. This, who is invisible in this statement?
The people, the Aztec people.
Exactly.
The people who owned the gold.
Exactly. So, and I had an interesting talk with my granddaughter when she had this assignment. And I hope, she went back to school with a different perspective than her textbook. I read through that entire chapter, and there was not one mention of the indigenous people. And in fact, it said things like, the old one, Columbus discovered America, and then the pioneers came and settled in an empty, endless stretch of land. Their main dangers were, Rocky Mountains and harsh weather and, wild animals. Not even a mention of the people who were already there. Thought that was interesting. Here's another one. Let's see, everyone can do this, because you don't have to raise your participant hand. You can just raise your hand. So no, this is a non-speaking part. So take a look at the words, the names on the left, and raise your hand if you know all or almost all of those names. Raise your hand. Okay, it looks like most of us. Okay, now take a look at this list on the right and raise your hand if you know all or almost all of these names. I see Anne and Julia. I'm impressed. Okay. What's the difference? And Sherlyn, maybe I can ask you, what's the difference between the list on the left and the list on the right?
Well, I know Ella Baker, so so I'm going to say that the list on the right are people of color who have made significant contributions to civilization.
That would be a very good guess. That would be a good guess. And Ella Baker is of African descent. But
not that all of them are necessary.
Not all of them. No,
not all of them.
She's the only one. I do have a different slide, and we don't have it tonight, but it's
gender.
Names of people of African descent. Regina.
It's gender.
It's gender. Absolutely gender. The left is all what? Regina.
Men.
And on the right?
Women.
All women. Exactly. Now, would it surprise you to learn that everyone on the right did exactly the same things as everyone on the left, but farther or faster or first?
Ooh.
Okay. And we can go over the details later if you have questions. Remember slide 35 if you want to come back to that later.
It's a great list.
Yeah. So interesting. I love making lists like this. Okay. So oh, did you see that? Our history. Look at the top.
Yes.
Our history and heritage. We get the first half in school and the second half nowhere. Goodbye. Another equity issue in our schools is discriminatory discipline. And repeated studies over and over again show significantly harsher punishments for students of color and low-income students, and also students with disabilities, beginning in preschool for the exact same offense. Think about that. What is at play here? Here's another, the school to prison pipeline. How many have heard of that? Yes, no? A lot of us. This is called, by PBS, an epidemic that is plaguing schools across the nation. And that's a whole nother presentation in itself, but it's one of the issues, a serious one. Another is segregated schools. Did you know that decades after Brown versus the Board of Education, which said school segregation is illegal, that public schools are more segregated now than they were when that decision was handed down by the Supreme Court? And there are reasons for that. Part of that is growing Hispanic enrollment, like in my town, for example, resistance to integration, white flight, and racial steering, where realtors have told white families, oh, let me show you homes in this area. And they'll say, well, what about this house? I really like that house. And they say, well, that's not a safe neighborhood, or those aren't good schools. You'd be much better off here. And that's extremely common. That happened to me, my family, when we moved here to Yakima 30 years ago. Every realtor office that I went in looking for a home, I said, we've got 2 kids, we need, so many bedrooms, we need to be close to, school within, easy driving distance, et cetera, et cetera. And I added, and we've just moved here from Puerto Rico and my kids speak Spanish, so I'd like to find a neighborhood where they can keep up their Spanish skills. And be really happy to find a diverse neighborhood with people of all different backgrounds. And every single realty office showed me the door. Think about that. So we bought a house, which was a good thing, because in the end, we ended up buying a house that was a whole lot cheaper because it was for sale by owner. So I guess there was a silver lining there. Unequal resources. So this is pretty standard. High, and I put the word in quotes, high minority schools, high poverty schools tend to have less money per student and larger class sizes, less experienced, lower paid teachers who are teaching out of their field of study, dangerous or outdated facilities, less demanding curriculum, higher staff turnover, and what is termed by the US Department of Education a massive inequity in resources. Unconscious bias. This is by teachers, those of us who are in the schools working with students. Did you know that students with Black sounding names like Jamal get lower test scores than those with white sounding names like Jake for the exact same answers? Now, obviously not on multiple choice tests, but where you have to write in your answer. Okay. Lots of research over and over again bears this out. And another, racial bullying. Over 1 in 5 students between the ages of 12 and 18 report being bullied at school. That's 1/5 of our student population. And it includes being made fun of, called names, insulted, excluded from activities, sometimes forced to do things that you don't want to do, push, trip, spit on, your property's destroyed or threatened with serious harm. And then in recent years, add cyberbullying to the list as well.
Could I just add that those are only those that report it?
Exactly, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That number is probably a whole lot higher. Undoubtedly a whole lot higher. Thank you for that. Colorblind racism. Many of us have been taught that it's wrong to notice skin color, but we aren't really colorblind. And most of the teachers that I work with and administrators, and they'll say this when we had in-person trainings, they would say this on the very first day when I put up colorblindness, just the title of the slide. And they say, colorblind racism, colorblind isn't racist, it's just the opposite. I'm colorblind. And I say, can you explain that? Do you have a problem with your vision? Have you been to the eye doctor? No, I'm colorblind in the classroom. That means I don't see color. I treat everyone equally as an individual. And my thought is, it is well-intentioned, but if we say, I don't see color, it denies people's lived experience and it makes them invisible. Now, what if someone came up to me and said, Randie, I don't see you as a woman. I'm gender blind. Well, excuse me. That's how I go through life. That's how other people see me. That's how they treat me. And you can't see that. And if we can't see race, we can't see racism. Think about that. I would say it's better to see and value diversity, not to be color blind, but color aware and prejudice free. So if you take one thing from this presentation today, this is it. I believe that we won't make significant progress as a community or as a nation until we find unity in all of our diversity, until we recognize that there is no us or them. It's all us. Think about that. So are we okay so far, or are you ready to hear a little bit about the UnityWorks school program? Questions, comments, keep going. Bring out the dessert. Okay, I'm gonna
Keep going.
All right, so the UnityWorks school program. UnityWorks is a nonprofit, Sherilyn mentioned this at the beginning, and we are a nonprofit educational organization committed to a belief in the oneness of humanity, the value of diversity, and the need for unity. Oops. Oh, sorry, let me go back. Our mission is to promote cross-racial and cross-cultural understanding, equity, and inclusion with a focus on K-12 schools. We have deliberately chosen to work with educators because of the multiplier effect. A single teacher can reach thousands of students over the course of a career. And then those students can then influence their families, their neighborhoods, their workplaces, and their communities for generations to come. We have particularly worked to address what is called the most vital and challenging issue of racial prejudice, and to develop a social action model that will translate this vision of unity into reality and action. So UnityWorks began in 2014, about 8 years ago, on the Yakama Nation Reservation in Washington State. And our national headquarters is in my upstairs bedroom. And it has developed into a proven model, which includes professional development training for educators, high quality, at least I hope they're high quality, definitely low cost educational resources, and ongoing support through our K-12 school program, which I will share with you a little bit in a moment, but know that right now it is on hold due to the pandemic. For the past 2 years, we've had nothing in person at all. The program is not a specific curriculum or a top-down list of multicultural directives that must be implemented at each school. Rather, it's a set of principles, tools, and strategies designed to build capacity at the grassroots, empowering each team to create its own blueprint for change. And these are three of our school administrators here in Yakima from 3 different schools. A network of teams creates a learning community that can share ideas and resources, build confidence, and offer support. And before the pandemic, the teams met together at the end of each school year for a multicultural conference where they shared what they were doing and some of their challenges, some of their successes, and so forth. I missed that. Questions so far, or would you like to hear about the Summer Training Institute? Summer Training Institute coming right up. Okay. So in the summer, when teachers are off school, that's when they're free, we have involvement in the school program begins with an action-packed 5-day, that's 40 hours, very intensive Summer Training Institute. And that's designed to prepare school site teams with the knowledge, tools, and strategies needed to develop a diversity action plan, which they then would carry out during the school year. And UnityWorks would meet with them from time to time, do site visits, if they wanted to bounce ideas off of us, or, hey, this incident just happened. on campus? How do we handle it? Or do you have any resources for Columbus Day? Oh, now it's Indigenous Day here in Washington State. Okay. So just ongoing support with their plan. High school and college students have participated in the training as well. And the sessions are interactive, hands-on, and have real-life classroom applications. Here you see a counselor on the left, Charles, and one of the administrators doing a stereotyping activity where they're writing down stereotypes on little Post-it notes and posting them up on different categories of people around the room. And then we discuss those common stereotypes, which we hear in schools and which everybody knows anyway, all the time. And we talk about how to get them out of here. Training topics include race and racism, culture, language, gender, religion, stereotyping, prejudice, equality versus equity, school discipline, culturally responsive teaching, and a whole lot more. These are students at the Yakama Nation Tribal School. Guest speakers each day serve to personalize the training content by sharing stories and answering questions about their own lives. And the participants have said that this is the highlight of their day, getting to know a real person and their life story. It's not abstract after that. With singing, dancing, drama, poetry, crafts, and other arts activities, the training is also a lot of fun. And then our former spring multicultural conference, which I hope we will be able to reestablish again once the pandemic is far in the rearview mirror. Where local coordination is in place, activities such as this conference can provide opportunities for teams to network and share best practices. We are not just providing goods and services, but intentionally building local capacity. And our goal is not only to change laws and policies, although that's certainly part of it, but hearts and minds. So next, we'll try to do, it's a little harder on Zoom, but we'll try to do a couple of sample training activities. I've got 3 of them here. This one is called Link Ups. It's on our Teaching Unity curriculum guide, and all of these are in our classroom materials. So I'm going to start and say that you can do this in your classroom. You can do it with kids, you can do it with adults, you can do it with study circles. So I'm starting. Hi, my name is Randie, and I love to play volleyball. So raise your hand. Anyone else in the Zoom here like to play volleyball? Anybody? Okay, Sherlyn, I see your hand. Okay, so Sherlyn and I would link arms. It's hard to show you on the Zoom, but we would link arms and both standing at the front of the classroom. And then Sherlyn would describe the link. She would say, this is Randie and I'm Sherlyn, and we both like to play volleyball. So Sherlyn, go ahead and do that. Unmute.
All right. Well, this is Randie and I'm Sherlyn, and we both like to play volleyball.
And now you're going to add something. Go ahead.
Okay. I like to play the flute. Okay.
Okay. Any other flute players in here? Raise your hands. And let's just say no one raised their hands. So you're going to have to.
We got one.
Is there one? I can't see it, but
yes,
okay.
Remy and Dave. Awesome.
Okay, so then Sherlyn would call on one of them if there's 2 or 3 or more, and then that person would come up and link arms with Sherlyn, and on until I do it with the whole classroom. But when I'm demonstrating it for the teacher training, we just do it with 5 or 6 people so they get the idea of how it works. So then you have the entire classroom is linked together, arm in arm, and then the last person has to think of something that they can link back to the first person. So it might be, and I have a pet cat, okay? And so let's say the first person has a pet cat, they can come and link arms. If not, they have to think of something else until they link. And then that closes the circle. So the cool thing about this is that every single person in the room has made at least 2 connections with 2 other people in the room. And making connections is what it's all about. Mm-hmm. So this is a cool get to know you activity at the start of the school year or the start of anything. So this is another one. This is a jar. And let me grab my jar here. So can y'all see this?
Yep.
This is a wide mouth jar. Don't try it with a narrow mouth jar. So the top comes off easy, standard jar, right? Then I'll call someone up. Let me show you one of the, oops, let me get back here. Okay, hang on a second. Here we go. So this is one of the participants in our trainings. And here's the jar. And I say, can you just take the top off of this jar? But there's a catch. You can use four fingers, but you can't use your thumb. So you can see she's kind of got her thumb out of the way there. You see the picture. So she's struggling and struggling and she can't open it. And then I say, okay, now try it with your thumb. Boop, simple, okay? So any biology or science majors in here? What do we call our thumbs? Anybody?
Opposable thumb?
Opposable digit.
Yes, it's opposable, which means opposite, right? Try it with your hand. It moves in the opposite direction, which gives us the ability to do what, Sherlyn? Grasp, right? So diversity gives us options. It gives us choices. It gives us strength. It gives us creativity. Diversity is not the problem. Diversity is the solution. Now, don't try this as I did once. Now I try to pick out someone in the class, usually female, no stereotyping here, usually female, short with very thin fingers, just to make sure that they have a problem. One time I made the mistake of calling on this giant linebacker football type guy, and he took 2 fingers and went like this, boop, and popped it off. So that's the last time I tried that one. Okay. Diversity is not the problem. Diversity is the solution. Now here's one more. I'm going to need a volunteer for this. If Sherlyn, if you would like to pick someone who's not colorblind, raise your hand.
Okay, who's not colorblind? Raise your hand if you're not colorblind. Okay, Jillian, you're not, you said you weren't colorblind. Jillian's been picked here.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. Are you ready? So we're gonna, we do this actually in person. Let me see, I brought some of my paper colors here. So just regular construction paper. Can everybody see that? Different colors, black, white, red, yellow, and brown. So we have construction colored paper, and depending on who's in the class, we might use real people, or just in case, I always bring along some photographs of people from different colors, different backgrounds. So here's what this person needs to do. The volunteer, or you, sometimes they're voluntold, but thank you, Jillian. So match the papers to the faces according to skin color. So I'll do the first one. So this is Lilita. She's the daughter of one of my neighbors. And this brownish, tannish paper, we'll say, is about the same color as Lilita's skin, okay? So Jillian, are you ready? Which is closer, black or brown?
I guess brown.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yep. Which is closer, white or brown?
Brown.
Good. Which is closer, red or brown?
Brown.
Which is closer, yellow or brown?
Brown.
Okay, you got it. So what does this tell us about society's, you're off the hook, Jillian, you did great, thank you. What does this tell us about society's color coding of human beings? It's a lie. We are just different shades of hue, man. And our colors are a lot closer than we've been taught to believe. Think about that. In fact, friends, there is no skin color border. We come in a continuum of hues and shades. So I want to share a couple of quotes from the teachers who have gone through this training, not just this last slide, but the whole week-long training. And Sherlyn, could you pick 4 readers for us?
Okay, Vince is first, then Scott, then Lucinda, and then Vera.
Perfect, thank you. So this is Alejandra Rodriguez. She's an assistant principal, and she said,
I became an educator to help others. UnityWorks has given us the tools. It's definitely a need. We have to address the issues, and now we know how.
thank you. And Craig Olden, who's a school counselor.
I came in here with an intellectual lens. Through the experiences this week, it's gone from my brain to my heart. Wow.
That really moved me. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Joy Mendoza, who's a high school student in town.
UnityWorks opened my eyes. Even though I'm young, I can make a difference. Others say I can't, but I can.
Others say I can't, but I can. That's very powerful. Thank you. And the last one. This is Edith Godinez, and she works at Educational Service District 105, which provides training and computer services to about 45 districts in the Central Washington area. And she's an advocate for marginalized youth.
Because of this training, my hope in humanity will never be lost.
Thank you. This is why I'm doing this, friends, because it just, you can see people change. Questions so far, or would you like to hear some highlights from the school program? Continue? Questions?
Continue, looks like.
Continue, okay. So this is our, this is our UnityWorks school program, which, as I said, currently it's been on hold for 2 years now, and I miss it because of the pandemic. All of our schools were closed. And some of them are back, many of them are still hybrid, but no large meetings. So a wide variety of programs and activities have been organized by the UnityWorks teams, including, and I'm going to share a few from high school, then middle school, and then elementary school level. So one high school took a look at its data on achievement gaps between racial groups and decided to provide diversity training for all of their staff. They said, wow, there's a huge gap here. What are we going to do about it? And so based on the training that they took with us, the week-long UnityWorks Summer Institute, they developed monthly lessons on stereotyping, prejudice, race, and culture for all students. And if you look at this map, this shows you, they actually had a gigantic map, which they posted in the school cafeteria. And teachers came by and put stars on the map where their particular ancestors had come from, all of the ancestors that they knew. Then they made another map right next to it, and they had students come up and put stars on it all for them, for all the students. And they were just amazed at the difference. All the teachers largely from Western Europe, and almost all of the students from Central and South America and Mexico, and also from the Far East as well. So that told them right away, there's a lot that we don't know about our students. So it's a good point of awareness. They also organized an international students cultural fair, and the students put this on themselves, made all of the pictures and maps. They even had food from their country. And then the UnityWorks team gave all the parents and community members who came in blank pages of a passport. And then they would go to each of these different booths for each of the different countries that the students were from and get a passport, a stamp in their passport. So it was kind of cool. It was a lot of fun. They also arranged for an all-school learning event with Lakota hoop dancer Kevin Locke. And his presentation, which was very well received, reached over 2,000 students. And his focus was on the oneness of humankind. And you see in this photo on the right here, this is Kevin holding up the hoops of humanity. And as he explained, each hoop, there's red, yellow, black, and white. And he said each of those hoops represents a different race, a different color. And we know that race is a social construct today. Well, not everybody knows that, but a lot of people know that. And he said each of these hoops represents a different race, different color of people. What would happen if we removed one of the hoops? And one girl volunteered. She came up and he said, any hoop you want, pull it out. She pulled out the hoop and the whole thing collapsed. And Kevin said, you see what I'm talking about? It's all of us or none of us. I thought that was really cool. And from Sharon Harris, the assistant principal at the time, she said, I feel confident that we are headed in the right direction. At another high school, the UnityWorks team organized an exhibit on African American history, which was completely missing from their textbooks. No surprise there, right? And students also formed a multicultural club dedicated to learning about each other and serving the local community. And the student on the left, Alejandro Rodriguez, in the pink shirt, he was actually at our training. Teachers, his school team of adults invited him to come to the week-long training. And we let them bring students as long as they're mature, because we talk about some very difficult topics. And he said, you know, I'm a science major and I was going to form a computer club, but after this training, I decided to form a multicultural club instead. And he did. And there you see it sitting right in front of you. And the first thing they did was find out about the backgrounds and the culture and the life stories of every single person in the club. And then they decided to find out about the local community. And I thought it was kind of interesting that this was at a time when there was a Muslim ban. Some of you remember that, National Muslim Ban. And Muslim people were being harassed, and some were even being killed. And they decided the first thing they were going to do is visit the local mosque. Well, I've been in Yakima for 30 years. I didn't even know we had a local mosque. So I learned something from this club. They went to visit the mullah and they said, we hear all these negative things about Islam and all Arabs are terrorists and blah, blah, blah. We are here to learn. What can you tell us about Islam and the Muslim faith? And they spent the whole afternoon with him. And then they came back and shared that with their student clubs and completely changed people's understanding. I thought that was awesome. And then they decided to have a winter clothing drive, and they went to visit the homeless shelter and just kept making up things to do to help make our community a better place. The power of youth. Now we're at the middle school level. And I include this example not because it's spectacular and amazing and hard to do, but because it's so simple and quick and easy. One middle school displayed posters highlighting diversity. And they did that to put images in the students' minds in order to create a more inclusive school environment. It cost them all of about $5, just a couple of posters. And my response to them wasn't, that's all you're going to do? Like, that's not going to change anything. My response, and I truly feel this way, is that's awesome. You've taken a step down this path. Now, what's your next step? Right? Another middle school, and this one was amazing, they were concerned that only 5 parents had participated in anything at all during the previous school year. So they set the goal of increasing parent and community involvement. And those of you who are educators, and probably parents as well, know that parent participation correlates directly with school achievement for kids in school. The more parents participate, the better that kid is going to do on average. And if parents are absent, they're missing a major pillar of support. So that was the reason why this middle school was so concerned. In consultation with the local families, they decided to do this by learning about the cultures represented in their school. The staff, students, and parents working in teams, they had 5 different teams, one for each racial or ethnic group by their definition of that group. They worked together to prepare a year-end cultural celebration. And each month, the teams grew in size and excitement as they studied their own history, geography, cultural traditions, religious beliefs, current struggles, and a lot more. Speaking through an interpreter, that's the one on the left, one parent described the joy, and look at her face, the joy that she felt at finally being included. The plan was a success, with participants growing from only 5 parents at the start of the year to over 450 at their culminating activity. That's amazing. And the assistant principal, Julio Sanchez, said, we've been improving the program for 4 years now and have been making progress towards our goals every year. So I'm really excited by that. And now at the elementary level, This school created a unity wall with changing displays and organized a No Room in My Heart for Prejudice art and essay contest. And you can see, I don't know if it's large enough to see, but these two women, a school counselor and a librarian, are posting pictures of all the students in the school in these rays coming out from the heart. And they deliberately did not put them by alphabetical order or by classroom. They deliberately put a Black student next to a white student, next to a Native student, next to a Mexican student, and so forth, on purpose. And the first assignment to the students was go find your own picture and then go find the two people on either side of you and make a friend. I thought that was pretty ingenious. Another school researched countries and cultures from around the world and presented their findings to a standing room only audience of parents and community members. And the way they researched it, and you can see the bus on the right, this is Mrs. Frizzle's magic school bus, and it can go anywhere in the world at the blink of an eye. And so they went and they, whoops, let me go back one. Don't go away. Nope, back one more. Aha, okay. I have a new Zoom set up here, so I'm not used to where everything is at the moment. I was impressed because almost everyone in the audience, it was a standing room only audience, I did mention that. Almost everyone was Spanish speaking as their first language. And the teachers obviously knew that. And so they had two narrators, one for English and one for Spanish. And the Spanish one went first. And I didn't know they were going to do this. So I was just blown away when the Spanish narrator, the student, got up and said, somos una sola familia humana y fuimos a visitar nuestros hermanos y hermanas alrededor del mundo. We are one human family, and we just went to visit our brothers and sisters all around the world. They had gone from us and them to oneness. They also created student artwork to illustrate the concept of unity and diversity. And I know you can't see this up close, but each one of those kids, it's a photo of the kids in that class. And that's the classroom. This elementary campus held an all-school assembly where students shared what they had been learning about Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement all semester. And they even invited, they had a speaker, and you can see him standing behind the person at the podium, who is a school board member and had, as a child, had been at the Martin Luther King marches and had met him in person. So that was kind of cool. Another school, and this is probably my favorite story, they were deeply concerned about a sharp increase in racial name calling and bullying. And this happened right after the last presidential election. I will not mention any names, but kids were coming to school using the N-word, pushing kids of color. They were in fights, and it was getting worse and worse. And the incidents were up in double digits and growing by the day. So their UnityWorks team was quite concerned and weren't sure exactly what to do until the principal said, it was the first week of school. I was standing on the schoolyard during recess, and there were two students standing right in front of me, two girls. And one of them said to the other one, my parents won't let me play with you anymore because you are the color of poop. And I'm like, oh my God. So they said, our UnityWorks plan for this year is going to be learning about skin color. So they successfully eliminated these incidents and completely changed the school culture through a series of lessons on race and skin color. And for their culminating activity, and you see it right in front of you, 50 staff and over 700 students painted their own self-portraits using accurate skin colors and displayed these in hallways throughout the school. As a direct result, incidents of racial bias went from double digits to 0 and stayed there for the rest of the school year. So, friends, why did that happen? Every single student of every single color and every staff member, every teacher was validated for who they were. Every color was good. It was worthy of posting on the wall. Kids even brought their parents in and said, look, there's my picture. This is my class. These are my friends. Very different than what had been happening just a few weeks prior to this activity. And at the end of the school year during our spring conference, the principal got up and presented their activity and what they had done. And she said, we are now a community. I love this. And friends, all it costs was $100 for multicultural paint. It is not out of reach. Another principal, Alan Matsumoto, also created, and he's the one from the school that had the magic school bus. He created what's called the UnityWorks Minute, where at each staff meeting, a teacher is asked to share one activity that they have done with their students to promote unity and inclusion. So they're all learning from each other. And then just a couple more on the school program. And some of the schools decided, well, this is so cool. Next year, let's work together on this project. And so a number of collaborative programs rose up. This high school partnered with a local elementary school on an artboard project where students worked together to research and present on authors and artists from around the world. And the biographies were written in English and Spanish to support students' bilingual schools. Now, you have to know a little bit about Yakima, where prior to this, if you would be sitting in the teacher's lounge or out in the parking lot where teachers were talking, you would hear things like, if they want to speak Spanish, let them go back to Mexico. This is quite a different approach. And another group, 3 schools here, worked together to bring in a dramatic presentation, a play on the Japanese internment. And following the performance, the actors asked the audience, which were students, teachers, and community members, they asked them 3 questions. Why were people removed from their homes and imprisoned? Could something like this happen today? And what can you do about it? So I wanted to share a very short 2-minute video of educators who are sharing their thoughts, just a quick excerpt about the program. So I think Nason will let me know if the sound is okay. I hope it is. If not, I will fix it.
The UnityWorks project is a fundamental piece of helping build a better society, in my point of view. To do the projects, to do the thinking, to do the creative work that builds peace.
I'm sorry. I have to go back here.
Is really important to start in childhood. It's important to do this work with kids. It's also important to do this work with adults that are working in schools.
I think UnityWorks is an opportunity for us to begin relating to each other, not as the categories that we represent, such as which race we are, what our socioeconomic status is, whether or not we're male or female, anything like that, but rather as people who all have hopes and dreams of somehow living a better life and having that life being possible for our children and our community.
It's a way of us validating every single student we serve, despite what their ethnicity or their upbringing may be. I think it's an inclusionary program that just makes me as a teacher feel good, even about myself, teaching them Black history or other kinds of just knowledge of how our world works and all the people and the cultures that have come to build our world.
Part of our jobs as teachers and educators is to tell them that there really is only one human race. And we have lots of cultures, but we really have only one human race. And that's why I think UnityWorks is so vital for our community and other communities in our world.
There's a proverb, African proverb, that says if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. And I believe that this is why UnityWorks is important, because we want to go far. And in order to do that, we need to work together. And so that's why UnityWorks is important.
Okay.
The UnityWorks.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're getting close to the end. I wanted to share before we open for questions. I think I have 5 readers for this one, Sherlyn. Teachers changing views on race.
Okay, I really want to go for folks that don't have their faces on to draw you out, but that's just my slightly diabolical side. Oh, I see Kate Vesley's here. Kate, you're number 1. Sid, you're number 2. Gladys, number 3. These are folks that are just now coming on screen. Awesome, awesome. Let me see if I can get someone from the next screen. And let's see, okay. Deanna is 4 and Jill 5.
Thank you, Sherlyn. So,
thank you, friends.
Yes, and just so you know, I usually ask people on the first day when they come into the class to write down on a 3x5 card without their name, how many races do you think there are? And it usually starts with 5, like black, white, red, yellow, brown, or sometimes it'll be 7 or 10 or 25 or 82. I've even had numbers up into the thousands. And then we share those cards, pass them around, so, and you're not reading your own card, but just put them in a hat and then draw them out, draw a card out of the hat and read the number. So we get an idea of what the class is thinking without anyone's name attached to that number. So this is at the end of the class, what people are saying. So number 1 reader.
I never really thought of there being only one race. You really don't get taught that anywhere in life. So when you hear it for the first time, it kind of baffles you.
Thank you. And this one is from Susan.
The readings about race really opened my eyes. I always thought of race as black, white, red, and yellow, and that color blindness was good. Now I see that inclusion and awareness are better than just seeing people as all the same. I like the flower garden idea. I've never thought of it that way, appreciating each individual flower for its own beauty.
Thank you. And Brock says,
Gladys, that's you. Are you there, Gladys?
Sorry, I was
Here she
muted.
comes.
When we were told there was only one race, it took me a minute to realize that we are all one race, the human race. It was so simple to understand. As an educator, I must give my students the same awareness before they believe in our society's highly biased view. And it's too late.
thank you, Gladys. And from Patrick.
The fact that this can be supported by science only confirms the prejudice of our past. How are children supposed to understand what is right and wrong when parents and teachers as role models are programming racist ideology at such an early age?
And we have one more from Nicole.
That's you, Jill.
I learned today that we are one race, and I'm going to educate that we are one race. This idea makes me think of the movie Independence Day, when aliens came to blow us up, and we as humans came together as one to fight off violence. Someday, I would like to see that happen without the aliens.
Thank you. So thank you, readers. I appreciate that help. Just a quick overview of some of the diversity resources that we've developed in response to teacher requests. And one is a Teaching Unity Toolkit, which is a curriculum guide with hands-on learning activities. And that's for the upper elementary age level. And I'm excited to share that this is in classrooms around the world. Another is Overcoming Prejudice. It's just a 2-page PDF download for parents and teachers. Just gives a few ideas to get us started. We have some colorful PowerPoints for kids, mostly pictures, but using age-appropriate language to learn about skin color, prejudice, and how to overcome it. And this one, Portraits of Humanity, it's color photos of our brothers and sisters from around the world, which will look great on your office or classroom wall. And then lots of other things available on our website for those who are interested. So let's see what questions you have. Any takeaways? What impacted you most? Sherlyn, can we share thoughts in the chat, or do you?
No, we'll do them right here live. And Stephen is first up to bat. Stephen, or Stephen's iPad. So introduce yourself. And you're on mute, yes. You're still on mute. Still on mute. There you go.
Okay. Oh, are we good?
Yes.
Am I on mute?
No, we can hear you now. Your audio, your Zoom is just a little slow.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Okay. So I'm Stephen's wife, and my name is Burma, like the country. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I've never been to Burma. So you can imagine what that's all about. But I'm living in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so, and they're all concerned about eliminating critical race theory from the schools that don't teach it. And parents feel they need to have more control. So my question is, if parents, I love your curriculum, I think it's wonderful. But I believe that there are a lot of parents in the state who, if you gave them an overview of this curriculum, would be totally opposed. They don't subscribe to unity. We're all one race. When one group is not superior to another, when they believe it's true, they're full of stereotypes. So how do you interact with parents who, in trying to get this curriculum accepted?
So thank you, Burma, for that question and comment. And you're absolutely right. And you would be surprised to know that Yakima is very similar to where you are. It's very conservative, mostly white people in power. And we just had a very contentious school board election with people saying, we're not going to indoctrinate our students with the critical race theory lies, and it's harming, et cetera, et cetera. So you know all the arguments. My suggestion is a coalition of the willing. You can't force people to do something that they think is horrible and they don't want to do. And if you force them to do it, it's not going to work anyway. So what I usually find for example, in our week-long summer institute, sometimes principals will tell teachers, you have to go, especially you have to go take this. I don't like your attitude. And so they'll be sitting in the back of the classroom with their arms. I don't know if you can see this, but their arms are folded, their heads down. They've got a newspaper up in front of their face, or they're correcting papers or whatever. And it's usually a white male. And I want to say to any white males in the room also, you are not the bad guy. It's true that white males do have a measure of additional privilege and power in this society. And this is a system that we all inherited. So what are we going to do about it if we have that extra privilege and power? Don't call people out, call them in. So I have these guys sitting in the back of the room on the first day of the training institute, and you can tell by their whole body language and their facial expression, I'm only here because my principal made me come. You're never going to convince me of, oh, I've heard all this stuff before. Yeah, I know, I'm the problem. I'm guilty. It's my fault. Racism, sexism, all of it. Yeah. Go on. And by the second day, they put their newspaper down and they're leaning forward. And by the third day, they're participating in the group activities. And by the end of the class, and you saw one of them, he said, I came in here with an intellectual lens and it's gone from my brain to my heart. They say, wow. And especially the guest speakers, where they can make a personal connection and see a real life human being. And they say, my heart has been changed. I get it. And so the fact that people can change, and all of us can change, gives me hope. I had one guy who was ordered to take our training, but it was court order if he wanted to keep his job. So you can imagine what he did. I won't even get into it. But at the beginning, the first day of the class, everyone sits in a circle and goes around and introduces themselves. And he introduced himself by saying, my name is so-and-so, and my father was a racist. He taught me to be a racist. I'm always going to be a racist. And I hate this group, and this group. And he was actually pointing to real people in the class. I'm like, oh my God. And at the end, on the final day of the training, we were in a circle again saying, what's my takeaway? What am I leaving this training with? And he said, I was born a racist. I've been a racist all my life, and I'm going to die a racist. But after taking this class, he said, I know that it's wrong. So I'm thinking, okay, that's progress, right? So yes, critical race theory is the hot topic right now. Critical race theory is basically looking at our country in terms of systemic racism, not individual prejudice, but how that prejudice has been embedded in our economic system, in our political system, in our housing system, in our educational system. And it was invented or created or named, I should say, by legal scholars who were, they looked at the civil rights movement, and it was shortly after that, and said, wow, with all of this, these things happening, how come, it's 20 years later, and how come we haven't made much change? What's the problem here? Oh, let's make a theory. And the theory was called critical, not meaning to criticize, like criticizing white people. Critical meant essential, important. And they called it a theory because they were looking at how is racism embedded in our institutions. It's not just individual prejudice. And they came to the conclusion that, wow, it's embedded in all of our institutions. And this became a course that was taught in law school. It is not taught in K through 12. It is not taught to our students. It is a legal theory invented or described by legal scholars. And a group of people have taken that as a political weapon. They've weaponized those words and made it into something that it's not. So I would say if you have people that are convinced that all this harm is being done, I would ask them questions. What makes you think that way? How do you know that? Have you ever seen this? What would you feel, what would you say if that weren't true? What would happen if? And ask lots of questions and clarify rather than attack and say, oh no, you're wrong, you foolish person, you believe everything you're told. So, and my question, one of my questions is, if students are old enough to experience racism, then their classmates are old enough to learn about it. Think about that. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's all I got right now.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, that was a lot. That was really very informative. Remy and Dave. Hi, folks.
I'm just, this is such a dynamic, wonderful program. But I didn't hear when it was that you started your program, what year, and how widespread is it beyond your area? And can those materials all come from can we get them from your website?
So that's 3 questions, Randie. So it began in 2014, 8 years ago. And the materials are all available on our website. The only thing that's not available is our participant workshop for the week-long training. I've taken that off for now because we don't have the training in. but everything else is there. It's unityworks.org. And how widespread is it? We started here in Yakima just because it's my backyard, and I was upset by what my grandkids were learning in school, and I wanted to do something about it. And so working with teachers seemed like a logical step. And so we went to the school board, and I had been teaching. This is probably a little bit more than you asked for, but do you have time for a little story?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to overstay my welcome. I've already gone longer than I said I would.
No. We stay here long. Don't worry about that. Tell
Okay.
us the story.
So this is how it got started in 2014. I was teaching at our local university, Heritage University in the Yakima Res. And I decided for reasons I couldn't work there any longer. And so I wanted to do something else. And I wanted to take all the material that I had in my classes, which I was teaching teachers, and it was multicultural stuff. And they kept asking me for hands-on stuff, real activities, not just research, not just theory. So I wanted to take all of that and put it into some materials that teachers could use and training to go along with that. And so I developed this week-long training institute. And then I called the school board, I called the superintendent, and I said, would you be interested in this? It wasn't a hot topic at that time like it is today. It was just like, well, maybe. And the superintendent at the time said, you know, if you had called last year, I would have said, absolutely not. If you had called last month, I would have said no. If you had called last week, if you had called yesterday, the answer would have been no. But I just got off the phone with our State Board of Education, and they're filing a lawsuit with the ACLU against our district because of a pattern of racial discrimination. And we were ordered to get our act together and have an answer for them by the end of the day tomorrow, a plan. He said, you're it. Thank you for calling. That's how it got started. I see Nason is giving the thumbs up, and that's just his picture. So he probably knew what I was doing. So thank you, Nason. And then how widespread is it? So the superintendent said, go to the school board and ask them if you can do this experiment with one school. And they gave us one school. And that school took our training. And as I mentioned, it was under duress. The principal ordered a bunch of people to take that, a bunch of their staff to take the training. They had such glowing reviews afterwards that they said, why don't you ask some other schools to join us, or to take it next year? And so I went back to the school board and they said, okay, next year you can have 3 schools, and then come back again. Next year you can have, total of 5. And each year it grew and grew until we had, I think, 24 schools. And then people were saying, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. What if something happens in the Yakima district? And actually it did. A new superintendent came along and said, there's no racism in our district. We don't need training. Just talking about race is causing the problem, go away. And so fortunately, we had some other schools by then in the surrounding area, and started to get some schools in the Seattle area as well. We saw some of their images earlier. So it's kind of spread out around the state. We have inquiries, and then COVID hit, and then everything was canceled overnight. And we spent a year putting together some of the content from that week-long training into online, live online workshops, which we have now. And now we have a number of schools, mostly in Washington State, who are interested in, and we're beginning to schedule those as well. So my hope, and I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, because somehow Zoom makes me look better, and Sherilyn's poster made me look better, but I'm getting up there in years, and we all have an expiration date, right? So I'm hoping to find someone who can take over the administration of this program. I would like to continue for training as long as I can. I just love that aspect of it. I'd like to develop more content and develop some additional trainers. We have 4 now, and I'd like to have a larger roster of trainers. And my hope is that we will actually be adopted by a larger national organization. We are in consultation. I feel safe saying this in public because they've announced it in public as well. The National Center for Race Amity, which some of you might be familiar with, has asked if we would like to be their school education, teacher education arm. And so we are in those discussions now. My fervent hope is that that comes to pass and we will have that network of support where we can begin building on that, and it's not all on the shoulders of 1.25 people, which it is now. So, and I've got lots and lots of ideas of how that program can go. In addition to expanding our live online workshops and our roster of trainers and reinstituting our in-person training and conferences, but I'd also like to see a trainer training program. I'd like to see a monthly online discussion webinar like the My Stories thing as well, and then online discussion for people who have taken our classes to kind of debrief and discuss some of the things and how it's working in their school. I'd like to see an after-school program for elementary students. I'd like to see a summer Unity camp, which we've done here in Yakima a couple of times, but I'd like to see that picked up. I'd like to see a middle school art and essay contest like the elementary school or the middle school did that you saw earlier, but on a much larger scale. I mean, we could be global, at least national. And what else? Another thing that we were just about to do when the pandemic hit was a high school poetry slam on diversity topics. We had the building lined up, we had students who had already submitted things, and boom, everything shut down. So lots of ideas and lots of hopes. I do hope, Randie, that it expands much farther than our little area here. Thank you for asking.
It's just so dynamic, and it's got such excellent focus and creativity. We're hoping it'll come to Wisconsin really soon.
Thank you. Contact our information number. You never know.
Congratulations. That is just absolutely wonderful news, Randie.
Well, it's still up in the air. I mean, they made a statement and we said yes. But we'll see what happens. They're in the middle of all kinds of things right now. So
of course, yeah, but that's very exciting news, and all of the things you want to do with it, you know, going forward. Yeah, absolutely. But to drill down a little bit on Dave's comment. So if there was a school in Wisconsin, say, that wanted to take advantage, you know, of the programming, is that possible? And how would they do that? First, is it possible, you know?
Yes, it's like a yes, but no, yes, and yes, and what we're doing with the schools on the west side of the state, they've all been, you know, out of school for the last 2 years as well. And so, for example, the Kent School District, you saw their picture, they're the ones with 138 languages. So we just finished 2 series for them all online. And it's 3 courses. And they did it at the beginning of this year, and they've signed up again for one in August, 1 September, and 1 October, I think. So that's all online, and we break it up so it's not, it's a 6-hour workshop, and then there's 3 of them. So people will get exhausted, you know, spending that much time online. So we break it up into 2-hour segments. And so that could be done easily. In terms of in-person, when things are back online and when our training roster is robust, we could send people out there. And that's what we have done in the past before the pandemic. We would bring our show on the road, and we have a list of what the Wisconsin people would need to do to prepare, and sample letters and sample. They have to go to the thrift store and buy costumes, and we have specific costumes that we do our role plays and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if someone, you know, is very interested in that, they can reach out, unityworks.org, you know, and indicate, hey, we'd like to tell us how we can get started. And I'm thinking in the Zoom sphere for now, you know, right? Okay, awesome. Okay, thanks for waiting, Ann. Troy, what's up, Ann?
Well, I have several quick comments. Hi, Randie. By the way, I became a Baha'i because of Randie. But anyway, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned about the inequities in different school districts and poor children having less opportunity. And whenever I think of things like that, I realize that the whole society suffers from any segment denied the opportunity to maximize its potential to the utmost.
Anne, I'm sorry, I missed the last part. There was someone, another microphone speaking, and I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
Okay, I'm going to start over then. So you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that poor children have less educational opportunities, poor quality resources, and less well-trained teachers, etc. And whenever I hear that, I feel that the whole society suffers when any segment is denied the opportunity to maximize their potential to the utmost. And another comment I have is I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1978, and the Boston Globe front page headline was that 17 out of 18 Boston area high school valedictorians were foreign born.
Wow.
And that just really made an impact. And then my third comment is there's a wonderful organization called Beyond Differences that was founded here in California and is now nationwide and I think even worldwide, teaching children and teachers tolerance for differences, not only just racial differences, economic, cultural, handicap, whatever. And I would suggest that everybody here check that out. It's called beyonddifferences.org, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. And I was there in Cambridge the same time that you were there.
Yeah.
And Sherlyn, someday you should have Anne on. She has an amazing story.
Okay, we'll talk, Anne. I know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you for that recommendation, Randie. I have a question. This came up earlier in your presentation, and I'm wondering if you could explore it a little bit for me, where you talked about one of the components was culturally responsive teaching. And so could you tell us a little more about that? What that looks like, how it's shaped, and what cultures, how general or how specific that is?
Yeah. So I actually have an entire PowerPoint on that, but just the short version is that our curriculum, our teaching methods, our school climate should be inclusive of students from all backgrounds, language backgrounds, skin color backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, nationalities, so that our classroom incorporates, and I'll give you one example of what one school did. Our classrooms incorporate the students' reality and their experience into the lessons. And one easy, simple example is put up posters along the walls of people of different colors and different backgrounds in different countries. And this is our human family. So I walked into, wait, let me write down the story that I was just going to tell you. Oh yeah, so I don't forget it. That was okay. So I walked into a classroom in the Seattle area where we were doing our week-long in-person training. And it was in a teacher's classroom. And I walked in the door and just stopped cold. I looked up on the walls, and this was a math classroom. I looked on the walls, and all along the left side of the wall were faces of white men, big posters, portraits. And no surprise, these were presidents. And this was pre-Obama days, right? So all the presidents were white males. That's true, they were, but he chose to put those posters up. Then all along the right wall were pictures of Black men. Guess who they were? Any guesses? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, all the basketball stars, right? So I'm walking in and I'm seeing men on both sides, white men and Black men. And I asked the teacher, I said, wow, look at these posters. And he goes, yeah, aren't they awesome? And I said, well, why, what do you think students are getting from them, from seeing these posters? And he said, nothing, that have nothing to do with my class. I teach math. These are just posters, decorating my classroom walls. And I said, but really, the students are looking at these posters day after day. What hidden message, what silent message is going into their heads, even if you never speak of them? And he goes, nothing. And I said, well, if I'm sitting in the classroom and I'm your student, learning 2 + 2 is 4 or whatever, I'm seeing white men are in charge and black men can jump. That's what I said. And where are the women? Women can't do anything. Where are we? And he goes, oh, I think I get it. And the next day when we came back, all the posters were down. And by the end of the week, he had new posters up. And that's so simple, just pictures of people. Representation is major. And especially if you put people of different colors, different genders, different sexualities, different whatevers together, showing that people can be part of, one whole. So, and that's just images, not to mention what's in our textbooks, like, Columbus discovered America, or, Cortez found, gold. So I was going to tell that this is a long answer. I apologize.
No, go ahead. But no, you've got a riveted audience here. Don't stop.
You nail their hands to the chairs so they can't. So this one school did exactly that. They realized that their curriculum was pretty monocultural, and it was all basically white males, artists, authors, presidents, whatever. And so what they did was they held a cultural fair after school. Parents came in and they asked parents to bring in stuff from their culture and share it. So they set up tables, and some parents brought food, and some brought arts and crafts, and others brought picture books and whatever. And then the teachers went around and talked to those parents and took notes. Oh, so this is how, the Yakima Natives celebrate this, or this is why this group does that. And took lots of information and then began to incorporate that into their lessons. Instead of, John and Mary, were, 2 trains were coming at 30 miles an hour, whatever, problems you have. Put real names, real people, real objects, and real experiences into those lessons. And so it incorporated the students' real lived experience into their classroom. So that's just one short example, culturally responsive teaching.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you were indicating that, that's another PowerPoint presentation. The question was asked, would you do another presentation? So I'm going to ask you, what other presentations could you do? So we know we've got cultural relativism in the classroom. What else?
I actually have, well, we have our 3 classes, but you don't want a full class, but maybe I could excerpt some things. We have culture and communication, or diversity and inclusion is one. This is for the educators. Culture and communication is a second one. The reality of race is a third one. That might be easier to chop into smaller pieces. And so I've done that one, excerpts of that one before. So my time is really, I'm kind of overwhelmed right now.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but something easy that I could do. The reality of race would probably be the easiest.
Okay. So we'll take a poll.
Don't do that in front of me.
Thank you. So any other questions or comments? Let's give Randie a minute to get a little water or something. Work on that banana. I know she's hiding in the background. Keep the energy up, because we have a few educators here. So have some folks here, you can raise your hands or, whatever, but, have you gotten some great ideas that you hadn't thought about before from this presentation? Do we have some hand raises or, some affirmations there that could be shown? to see. Okay, awesome. Anyone want to pick out one in particular that was really impressed you? Okay, Sharon's up here. Sharon, go ahead.
Hi, Randie, I have so enjoyed listening to you talk. And I'm retired, so I've been retired for 12 years.
I'm jealous.
And yet,
I'm jealous.
And the thing is that what I'm hearing was what I was seeing. Well, not seeing in the classroom is what I'm saying. And I just think it's wonderful that you're putting all these things together, because I think the new generation needs to hear this. And the old generation needs to hear it too. Like the gentleman who said that he's this, he's that. And I was just saying that I have so enjoyed listening to you. And it brought me back to my 34 years in the classroom.
Wow.
So I want to thank you.
Thank you. And to be honest, these ideas are not all from me. They're from watching excellent teachers doing what they do. So if I had seen your classroom, that would probably be in there too.
And that's one of the things about educators. We share our information. And when you share, that really makes you feel like you're one family, because you share things with your family. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Randie, thank you so much for doing this presentation. I have been working within my school around diversity, equity, inclusion, the three buzzwords there that we're all up to at this point in time. And I'm hoping that what you're going to do is tell me that I'm wrong and that you do have something that I can jump on with your wagon. And that is, when I went to your website to explore it, I was discouraged because it was bigger than a small school, a single small school that isn't attached to a school district, that's in a rural area that doesn't have 12,000 kids in the school. That, we have one elementary school in our town, we have one high school. So everything was geared more towards larger, bigger populations. And I kind of went, I can't grab on here. So I'm still sort of out floundering around looking for things. So I'm hoping what you're going to say is, no, this is what we have to offer, or this is just a comment.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca, for bringing that up. And obviously, I'm not looking at the website with objective eyes, because I put it together, so it looks fine to me. But absolutely, what we've had, every school that we've worked with, well, that's not true. We've worked with districts, like some of the ones I did show you, but we have worked within, for example, in the Yakima district with one school. And we started with one school, and each school that we work with is one school. So sometimes the whole district will get on board and we'll do something district-wide, but each school is still working for its own school and its own students. And I would say some of the, in our online bookstore, there are materials like how to create a diversity action plan that even, one group of a committee, like if you have a DEI committee in your school, can just download that and start working through it. And it's got checklists and tools and ideas. It doesn't have to be a whole district or a whole region. So, yeah. And the trainings that we do online could be for one school as well. It doesn't have to be for the whole district. But we do ask that you have, right now with online trainings, we do ask that there's a minimum number of people just to make it worth our time. Like we wouldn't do a whole training for 5 people. So, but those details are on our website. And our website will be becoming a lot simpler. Our new website is being built now, and it should be about 1/4 of the size. So it'll be a lot easier to navigate. Yeah.
Great, great. What, well, let me see if there are any questions from the gallery here before I launch into another one. How about Mike? Mike, are you there, Mike? I go after the quiet people and the faces I can't see. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Sherilyn. I'm actually Cindy.
Cindy,
my computer died and is
okay.
getting transferred to a new computer. I'm borrowing someone else's.
Okay, you're in stealth mode, and I know Cindy very well. She's up in Faribault. And hey, Cynthia, how are you doing? Do you have some questions or comments from tonight?
I would love if Randie could come back 2 or 3 more times. And I'm looking forward to watching the video of this.
Yeah,
and taking notes.
We're going to turn it around very soon and to get this out here because it was really very good. Let's see. Jilla, how are you today, Jilla? I love Jilla's, I don't know if you guys can see her in the gallery, but she's definitely got to be a science teacher, I'm guessing, because she's got this cool lab set up.
Hi, Sherilyn. Thank you for picking on me.
Yes, how are you?
My heart is overjoyed with this presentation, and I love your style as well, Sherilyn. And so this really cleared the rust from off my heart. And I'm thinking of even quitting my job and figuring out how to help UnityWorks.
So tell us a little more about you. What's your job now, Jilla? We make connections here, so let's pursue this for a moment.
I teach in a college in Western New England area.
Okay.
Yes, in the sciences.
In the sciences, okay. And well, you know how to reach out to Randie, right?
I'm going to definitely, yes, check out the website and explore options of how to take it maybe to higher education as well.
Ooh, that's a thought. That is definitely a thought. Awesome. Well,
you're making more work for me. Yes. But maybe that's something you can do.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like she's willing to help out with that. That's awesome. Awesome. Hey, Ralph, thanks for coming and letting us see your face. How are you tonight, Ralph? You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
It was
there
a pleasure home front pioneering in Cortland, New York at SUNY Teachers College. And I was doing my laundry there, and there's a girl had a book. It was called Savage Inequity. It did talk about the disparity between the way money is distributed in the schools. I actually had an aunt that taught 12 grades in a one-room schoolhouse, my cousins told me. So I'm wondering exactly, some people do have a lot of different views about, some of the things they're teaching in the schools. And there's a good question. Everybody ever heard of Bennett Amalu?
Last name sounds familiar, but not the first.
Bennett Amalu is about chronic traumatic encephalopathy. This is caused basically by head injuries.
Oh, yes.
In that movie, it's interesting. It said if 10% of the mothers in this country consider football too dangerous for their sons at the end of football, and remind me what Abdul Baha said about the mothers of the world are against the war, because in some ways that where the violence starts is in football. In football being aggressive. I mean, it's in both. Well, it might be this warrior that's something in all the men. It seems like in some cases that this go way back. That women are seen as promulgators of world peace or universal peace, and go back to ancient times, Assyria.
Oh, thank you, Ralph. That's a very interesting perspective. Randie, does your work with UnityWorks, have you had any engagement with sports teams, or do you see, or have you seen in your experience that there is any difference, in, sports culture, if you will, within the K through 12, well, probably not K, but, in K through 12, in terms of the issue of race and, bias and such?
That's a really excellent question. And we have not worked specifically with sports teams, but I do know, for example, here in Yakima, we have two soccer leagues, the regular soccer league and the Mexican league. And so, and then different sports, I would say, have different cultures. I've been an athlete myself growing up, volleyball player and a swimmer, which I think has a very different culture than, say, football or boxing or wrestling. So, but I really don't have that experience, so I don't know.
Speaking of sports, this is something I've been wanting to ask you, and since you shared it in your bio, I'm going to consider it fair game. Why did you get chased by a gang in Morocco?
I was cute. I used to be cute, for those who can't picture it now, but I had taken a year off of college. My boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, asked me to marry him, and I said, no, I'm too young, I don't want to get married. And he kept pressuring me and insisting, and you're the one for me. And I'm like, that's it, I'm out of here. I want to see the world before I get married. And so I bought a rail pass and a youth hostel ticket and flew into Amsterdam, and then started traveling all around. And at the time I was young, I was probably 19, and I had long blonde hair, and I was cute. And so, so I met some guy in Spain, and he said, why don't you come and meet my family in Morocco? They've never met an American before. And I actually said they've never met a Canadian, because when I introduced myself as an American, everyone was hating Americans at that point, because we were doing something. So, and I also changed my name. I was Randie from the US, and Randie means promiscuous in England. And it means rowdy and obnoxious. And so I was Randie from the US. And so I very quickly became Sandy from Canada. So I said, Sandy, why don't you come, meet my family? They've never met a Canadian before, and it would be really cool. And, So he gave me his address, and I took the ferry across from Spain to Tangiers. And when I got there, I didn't know anything. I mean, I was stupid. I hadn't read anything about it. I had no books. I didn't know anyone there, nothing. And I just started walking down the street with my blonde hair and a single female alone, which in that culture is 50 years ago, that's a definite no-no. So I was basically advertising that I was fair game. And people started making, even though I didn't understand the language, they started making very rude remarks to me, and gestures, which you could kind of guess what they were talking about. And I started to run, and the whole group of young men started running after me. And fortunately, I had been in training all year before that, and I could run faster than they could. So I ducked into one of the shops and bought a jalaba, which is a head covering and a body covering that men wear. So I put my hair back, put this over me, and started walking like this. And so they couldn't see who I was, and they left me alone after that.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty stupid.
That must have been awfully frightening. My goodness.
That adrenaline helped me run faster though, so it was good.
Oh, I bet. My goodness. That was an experience. Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah, that's if you've ever come anything close to something like that, it's beyond words. What that does to you. It really, really is. It's a very, very
it can be like
frightening. Yeah, frightening doesn't even come close to it. I'm going to put in the chat right now, and I should have done it sooner, But if you're not receiving our event notifications and would like to, there's a link in the chat where you can go in and just sign up to find out who's coming up next to speak and, so on. We keep the emails to about 4 a month, or I'll say this recording's available now, so you can go back and look at it. So you can just copy that or even click on it and it will take you to the form to fill out, and you can fill it out after we're done here. If anyone knows Chris Billy, who was here just a little while ago, she's the one that reminded me. She says, yeah, I'd like to know, but then she left before I could get her the link. So you know her, Randie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so if you could share that with her, thanks. I'd appreciate that a whole lot. Okay, I'm gonna call on a couple of other people. So Dorcas, how are you, dear? Dorcas, I know you're there.
Yes, yes, yes. Hello.
There she is. Hey, Dorcas, what's going on?
Oh, just enjoying the listening and everything, listening and growing. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you all too. That story was really something. My goodness.
Wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
importance of knowing your reality, right? Know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as very young women and people, we don't, we're oblivious to those kinds of things. We don't even consider that, right?
So naive,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I don't really have any other comments. I've been enjoying it. My husband's really been enjoying it. He said it's really burdened a whole lot. He loves to talk about diversity and inclusion. Yeah, he said that was really been fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well, hey, hubby.
Hello. Well, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Randie?
I just wanted to let you know, Sherilyn, that I have a couple of closing thoughts, closing slides when you're ready.
Okay. All right. So let's just go around here real quick. People are dropping off now because they know I'm on the hunt. I do this every session, it's like, how about Vince and Kenny? Hey, Vince, you have such a nice reading voice, by the way. I'm wondering if you've done that professionally. There he is. Hey, Vince.
No, I have not.
Okay.
I really don't have much to add at this point because my question was basically the young lady who asked the first question.
Okay.
Because now we are in particularly schools all over the country, particularly in the Midwest. It tends to be very conservative. Of course, it's conservative everywhere, actually. But I am concerned about teachers feeling free to talk about diversity and race. What I do like about your approach is that it's based on very individual stories, how teachers themselves or the students themselves, what kind of background they come from. But we now are in part of the cultural wars in this country have to do with just opposing the very idea of race because it might make some people feel uncomfortable. So I don't know if you have anything more to add to that than what you said before. But yeah, that would be my comment.
My comment is I agree with you. And if people can, that's why to me, the foundation is the recognition that we are one human family and we don't treat each other that way. And that race is a social construct. We have a whole thing on race where we look at how the idea of race came about. And we do things like that exercise with the construction paper and the skin colors. And people can actually see, whoa, and we do some genetic ancestry stuff and people come to they do the math. Wow, we are actually at the very most 50th cousins, every person on the planet. And a lot of us are a whole lot closer than that. When they start getting those facts into their heads, and people do it, but it's harder to deny math and science, but we do it all the time. But if people get the idea that we are one human family, and then they look at how we treat each other based on those surface things like skin color and where skin color comes from and what melanin is for, and it's actually like a built-in natural sunscreen, and it's sort of protection against sunburn and skin cancer. When people get all that background information, little by little, you can see some of their objections starting to melt away. And I'm encouraged. I wouldn't be doing this anymore. I would have given up long ago if I didn't see people change. So that does give me hope. Right now, there's a huge resistance movement to anything, to even talking about race, as you said. I hear it all the time. Just talking about it is the problem. Really? So you're right. There's a lot of work to be done. But that actually goes to my next slide.
Okay, go ahead.
Sherlyn took the bait. Okay.
Yes.
Do I need to click share screen again, or?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. And before we go, I have a question for all of us too. Well, actually, I'll just throw it out there while Randie's getting the slide up. And that is, those of us that are no longer parents of, children in K through 12, or we don't have a direct connection, with the educational system, the K through 12 system, what can we do? The first line I said in introducing this topic for this week was, everyone's an educator. We educate by the things we do and don't do, and by the things we do and don't say. But what can we take from tonight and somehow infuse somewhere in our own lives, in our own communities? So I just put that out there. Yes, go ahead.
You and I are totally in tune, because that's exactly what my slide is.
Oh my gosh.
I promise we did not coordinate this. One concrete action. Can everybody see the slide?
I can now, yeah.
Okay. One concrete action that I can take, not me, you, to help educate others about the oneness of humankind. Whether you're a teacher and it's your students, whether you're a grandparent or a parent and it's the kids, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's a social group that you belong to, a religious community, one concrete action. And I was hoping, maybe we don't have time for it right now, but you can write it down, or engrave it in your head, something that you can do starting tomorrow, even if it's inviting a neighbor out for coffee, or putting up a picture of multicultural picture of kids in your granddaughter's bedroom. One simple, easy step. What can you do? So that's one. And then, can I do closing thoughts, Sherlyn, or did you have?
Absolutely. No, go for it.
Okay, thank you. You're very generous. So some closing thoughts. Okay, here they are. This, a couple of slides. This one comes from Catherine, who's a native Yakima, here on the Yakima Reservation in Washington. And she said, maybe, Sherlyn, would you read that for me?
Sure. As a Native American woman, I particularly appreciated my internal healing as you closed with these thoughts. We need to recognize the oneness of humanity and teach it to our students. To purge our hearts and classrooms from all traces of racial superiority and inferiority. To teach the value of diversity and the need for unity. To teach students about the nobility of the human spirit. To call them to the high station of service to all mankind.
Thank you, Sherlyn. And then this is from me. Awareness and good intentions are not enough. Adding diversity to our mission statement is not enough. Celebrating Black History Month is not enough. We need to create safe, equitable, and inclusive schools and communities where diversity is welcomed and everyone knows that they belong. In a world torn by injustice, hate, and war, our classrooms can become models of hope for the future. That's all I got.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you got a lot, Miss Randie. And I love that closing photograph. That was just beautiful.
I love it too. Thank you.
Oh, that's an awesome photograph. Thank you so, so much. Okay, this is last call, people. Last chance. You've got her in the room. It took over a year to get her here. So last chance. Okay, Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth, Hannah.
Hi. I'm a teacher educator and a developmental psychologist, and actually working with young children and teachers trying to get this done. But I think it's really important for religious communities, all kinds, to have diverse pictures of children in their church or in their center, because many children don't live either in an all Black or all white, that's, you know, or environment, and they don't see diverse pictures of children doing things together. And years ago, when Sesame Street did their evaluation, I guess after 5 or 6 years, and they talked to children about what they learned and what they wanted to see differently. And what they found was that the children saw themselves more segregated than they did before they started watching Sesame Street.
Wow.
And I think it was Valoria Washington that came and talked to us about that. But what she said was what the kids wanted to see were children together, like going to someone else's house for a slumber party, having a picnic together. You know, not that they're just isolated pictures, but pictures of children, real children, doing things together. And sometimes it's hard to get that idea across, and that it's important. And you know, there's a lot of new research on what negative bias is, that you're not born with it. It's the situations and what you're exposed to early on. And so I think those things are really important just to have. I mean, it's one small piece of it, but the pictures and what your classroom looks like, even a kindergarten room, it makes a really big difference to have diversity represented in a number of different ways. But I love your work, and a friend who I know you know, but I'm not going to say his name, told me that I was going to make my contribution when I was 80. So I'm getting there. This really inspired me to get my act together. So yeah, it was very good. But thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I'm right behind you.
Look at this. There it is. So
are a few of us.
Yeah.
We could do that link. We could do that link right now.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. There it is. Yeah.
We could do that link. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Oh,
you're
Kate.
You're welcome.
Kate, you got your hand up there, Kate?
Yes, hi. Thanks for your time, Randie. Hi,
you.
Sherilyn. I don't know how to ask the question, so I'm just going to say it. Is there much research out there to help families desire and understand the importance of having a diverse classroom? What the benefits are for all the students, like comparing to an all-white classroom? Yeah, more segregated classrooms and then mixing them. What's the benefit to it? Is there much research out there?
That's an excellent question, and I probably should know the answer, but I don't. But I can tell you what one of our high schools found out. This is the white flight area of town, and this was a number of years back. But their student body was essentially all white. Parents had moved out to there. I'm not going to name the school district, to get away from those people. Right? That's the reason that they moved to that district. And so they, when the UnityWorks program started, they were one of our, one of the schools. This is not Yakima, but a nearby district. They were one of the schools that put their high school in the program, just to kind of see, you know, check off, we did diversity kind of thing, right? And so one of the things that happened was there's graduating seniors from the year before were coming back to the school one day for a kind of welcome back to graduating students day, or graduated students, and we're going to have you meet with the graduating seniors, and you can give them some advice on the road ahead when they're off work and college, and you know, just so the students who had already graduated came back and were given the microphone, and they said, you know, this high school prepared us really, really well for academics. Like, we're excelling in our classes, and we know all the book knowledge and whatever. But you know, it did us a real disservice, because one person said, well, I had a Chinese science teacher, and someone else said, I had a roommate from Mexico, and someone said, I got my first job, and you know, my colleagues were from here, and naming all different groups that weren't, you know, this wealthy white elite group. And they said, and I failed in that. I didn't know how to get along. I couldn't make conversation. I couldn't make friends. I lost my job. You know, I was just like, you did not prepare us at all for diversity. And that's what you need to work on. And then they turned to the administrators and they said, that's what you should be doing. And so, and my thought is, there has been a lot of research that I'm aware of on businesses and how diverse teams do a lot better than monocultural, mono everything teams. Because, you know, just like the jar, opening this, you know, the jar, they have choices and options and different backgrounds and different perspectives and experiences. And everyone has a piece of the puzzle, so that you can put those pieces together and you're much stronger than just the individual piece. And so diverse teams are actually a lot more productive. In terms of school experience, I probably should know about that research, but I'm guessing you're going to find out and let us know.
Well, I'll add on just a little tidbit to that. I can't cite the research, but there have been studies that have shown, and it was, these studies were actually looking at housing and comparing student outcomes in segregated housing and less segregated housing. And they found that all students in less segregated housing did far better academically, let alone socially, than students in segregated housing. And when I say segregated, they were looking at white students, okay? You know, how well, you know, white students do this well, you know, academically in school compared to white students in diverse communities and where they have diversity in their schools. And by having that diversity, those white students actually did better than what they would have done being, you know, in a monocultural setting. So yeah, they're out there. Yeah, I've seen that. They're out there. Susan was looking at housing patterns and the, you know, the implications of that, you know, for some other things. Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, and that's not
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I just want to tell a quick story, because this happened 30 years ago. My daughter was in middle school. I took two of her friends, and we lived in Lansing in Michigan. And to hear a Langston Hughes, not Langston Hughes himself, obviously, but someone who read his poetry. And at the intermission, I could tell that Amy's two friends were very uncomfortable. And I said, how are you processing this? She said, I've never heard people talk that way. And I said, well, do you read? They went to a really good high school, and supposedly, and they said, well, we've never read any Black authors. They didn't know who Langston Hughes was. So I got over to the principal's office the Monday after that and said, you know, what are you teaching about all these? Like, I took these very bright young girls to this, you know, performance, and they didn't have any knowledge of who this was. And he said, well, we don't have any Black children at the school, and so we don't teach Black literature. And I said, oh, so does that mean you don't teach any South American literature if you don't, you know? And he said, well, he couldn't say anything. And a very good friend of mine did training for schools at that time and students. And so I asked him if he would be willing to meet with this principal, and if the principal would be willing to meet with him. And the principal said yes. And my friend said, well, I can't do it in 1 hour session. That's what the principal offered him, an hour. And it was Richard, you know, Thomas. And so he said, I'm not going to do it. He said, this is an important topic, and we can't cover it in an hour, and your school has to figure out how it's going to do its education. But it was quite an eye-opening experience that that was their philosophy of what the curriculum was. And I don't think it's that far-fetched now in a lot of places, from what I've seen. But and the two friends went on to live in the multiracial unity program at Michigan State, which was where they got to be around a lot of different people in the dorm, and Richard took them all kinds of places, the very beginning of it. And they said it changed their lives being in that program. So it was just an interesting experience, but I wanted to share that because the attitudes are really interesting sometimes. So
thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're gonna head on out, but before we do, I want to welcome and thank Joyce M, who's here, and Hazel, and Lale, and Farah, and Ken, and Noreen. Couple people we didn't hear from this evening, but I know you're in the room, and I just wanted to acknowledge you. And Apple's iPhone. Okay, who's Apple's iPhone? Who are you? We gotta find out who this.
This is Hebra, but I couldn't open.
Oh,
that's why.
Hebra.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Hebra.
you.
Yes,
I'm
you said
listening.
you. Yes, you said you were going to be here. Okay, that's you. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much. It was so informative. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Randie,
I just wanted to say hello to Lale. She's part of my family.
Oh, really?
Hi,
Okay,
Lale.
awesome. Absolutely love her image there. It's just beautiful.
Her actual
Okay.
face is even more beautiful.
Yeah. Would she like to come on? I don't want to press her, you know.
She's
We'll
probably
pause.
cooking right now.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's good to have everyone here. We hope to see you in 2 weeks. We're going to, on May 14th, which is our next presentation. It's going to be a surprise. I'm not going to tell you yet. You'll just have to wait for the email to come out announcing. And then I will tell you about another one though. May 14th and then May 28th, is it? The 4th Saturday in May. We do the 2nd and 4th Saturdays. Robert Henderson from the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States will be joining us. Just so you know. So mark that date, put it aside, and you'll get more information in the email. All right, folks. Well, let's see. Oh, okay, Joyce, you got the form request. You had a question about it, Joyce?
Yeah, it says that the site is not taking requests anymore, so I don't know how to connect now.
Really? Okay, let me fix that real quick before you go. I can do that right now. It shouldn't be doing that. Keeps doing that. Okay, you should be good to go now. Thanks so much, Joyce. I'm really appreciate that you put that, you know, texted me about that, or, you know, chatted me about that. Thank you. It's something sliding it off for some reason. Okay. So I think we acknowledge everyone. Oh my gosh. You know, we took a little vacation. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, and I kind of got out of cycle of some things I normally do, but I'm remembering. And at the end of the day, I'm remembering something I always do at the beginning. And I always feel like, what am I missing? Something's missing. And it's gratitudes. So, of course, we want to thank Randie for being here and giving us so much of her time and so much of her experience, her personal life, you know, and her knowledge and dedication. I also want to thank all of you, of course, for being here. And they're laughing, they're just smiling because they know I'm going to talk about them. We also thank Nason and Jillian Sturdivant. They're off screen. You can see him. Nason's got his headphones on there. They're our tech support. They're our Zoom platform. They make sure everything's working good. They're the bedrock. And I love working with these guys. They're married. So sorry, men and women, they're both taken. We've had inquiries about both of them. They are a couple. And they're an awesome couple. But thank you, Nason and Jillian, for everything you do for making the series possible for all of us, you know, for all of us. So again, the date when Robert Henderson is speaking, that is May 28th. I'm pretty sure that's what I've got in my brain, but you'll get an email, you know, you'll get an email with the event notices. It'll come out. So thank you, friends. We're off. And thank you for being with us. You know, and it's always like this, Randie. You get down to a group and no one wants to go. You know, people stop leaving, right? And everyone just stays, you know, and so we have to say, okay, Nason, take us out. So he's going to take us all out. And we have a breakout, Randie, for you. Thank you, friends. So good to see you. Share this with the folks who didn't make it. Okay, looks like Nason's frozen. Oh no, he's not. He just has his mouth open. We have a lot of fun.
I can see that.
He was going to put us in a breakout room, and he's wondering, like, what happened?
Or just waiting for everyone else to sign on.
Yeah, it's just us now. There we go.
Good job, you guys. I'm amazed. I'm impressed.